Hi guys, how's it going? It's Sammy and it is New Year's Eve today, so I thought I would try and look a little bit festive. I have no idea how to do my hair anymore, so this is like the concoction today. We're going with it. Once you go sleek, you can't really change it. I wish I could, but I cannot without showering again. I cannot be bothered. Anyway, that's boring. Today, I thought I would go through and tell you a little bit about the books that I read in 2025. I didn't read a lot, so it's not going to be too crazy a video. It might get a little chatty though. I've read 17 books. My goal was to read 12, one a month. So I'm really happy with that. I've got my coffee. I hope you have your coffee because this is going to be quite like a chatty one, I think. I read my reading this year. I was going to do a video that kind of explained how my reading has changed this year, but I thought this one might be a better one because then instead of just hearing me ramble about how my reading has changed, you might actually get some like book recommendations out of this, either for yourself or for your kids. I read a lot of middle grade books because I work in a children's library. So probably half of these, I would say at least a middle grade. Yeah, that's probably about right. So, yeah, that's all the introduction I have. Let's get into it. I've got my, if you watch my notebook ecosystem video, that was a bit chaotic, I'm so sorry. I have my very unaesthetic reading log. Is it a log when you list them? It's like where I list the books that I've read, and I'm going to this year, or for 2026, do what I watch and what I read, like articles as well. Oh my gosh, as usual, you can probably hear my husband yelling in the background. He doesn't just game all the time, and I obviously don't just film videos all the time. We're doing this either when our daughter's asleep or when she's like with family and stuff. So just to preface, but yes, so he is gaming right now. I have ordered a microphone because in my notebook ecosystem video, you could hear him quite a few times and he is a little bit, oh my gosh, now there's the clock. Oh. Yes, I have ordered a microphone. So hopefully in future you will hear him less and me a little bit more. We'll see. Okay, so this year my reading changed a lot. If you watch any of my videos before, you would probably have noticed that I was pretty much strictly a fantasy kind of reader. This year that's kind of completely changed. I think I got a little bit bored with what I was reading. It kind of felt like I was reading the same kind of thing. And prior to like this feeling, I loved that, like I could eat that all up, but I just found myself in this space where I just wanted to read some things that were a little bit different. And then I also found Petya's YouTube channel. As I said in my notebook video, the YouTube gods and goddesses like really blessed me with that recommendation. And I just think her YouTube and her Substack, it just really opened my eyes and my heart up to reading some different things. I think I got really inspired by her because she's like a working mum who reads, and I don't know, I just kind of, I think I felt a bit out of sorts since becoming a mum, and kind of seeing someone else modeling that I just found really inspiring to see. So I think in some ways Petya and her community kind of shaped some of the things that I tried this year. And also just to kind of step out of my comfort zone from what I would normally read as well. So this year I kicked off the year listening to Yellowface. Is that by R.F. Kuang? I haven't written down the author. So yes, first one was Yellowface. I really liked this. I didn't actually rate many, if any, of the books I read this year just because I was going through that transition period. So Yellowface, I'm sure you've heard about. I feel like I'm one of the last people to read it. Was the book about the author who is not a very successful writer, and then her best friend ish is a really well-regarded writer, and it kind of then it deals with things. I actually don't want to say too much about it because I can't remember what you should not say about this, because I didn't know a lot about it. I just learned, I think all I learned about it prior to reading it was that it deals with, I guess, someone passing someone else's works as their own, and the author that had created it was of a different race and kind of dealing with the knock-on effects of that. This book was so chaotic. I didn't expect it. It, I think, is a page turner. You're kind of just, I remember just being addicted, wanting to know what on earth would happen next. And I think the ending was pretty chaotic and crazy, and just, I really enjoyed it. On a surface level, I must admit, I didn't really think too deeply into it, which is probably on reflection something that I should have done. But on a surface level, I found the book really enjoyable to read. Enjoyable, is that the right word? It just kept me interested the whole time. It's also my first R.F. Kuang book. The next book that I read was a junior fiction book, and it is Otter by Catherine Applegate. This is my first Catherine Applegate. She writes a lot of animal fiction, and this book was so beautiful. It is essentially about from an otter's perspective, and she gets separated from her family, and I think she gets attacked by another animal and then gets taken into like SeaWorld, like an aquarium kind of thing, and they rehabilitate the animals there to try to get them back into the wild. And it was just an emotional roller coaster. It was so sad, and there was this big like thing that you find out towards the end, and it was absolutely heartbreaking, and it was beautiful. I would recommend this book for kids maybe year 4, year 5 in Australia. So what is that, about 9 or 10? Maybe an 8-year-old could read it. It's just, I would recommend maybe a parent reading it with them, because it does tackle a couple of things that are quite emotional and sad, but it was so beautifully done. I think I really enjoyed it, and then that encouraged me later on to read another one of Catherine Applegate's books. The next book that I read was Nanberry, Black Brother of White, and this is by Jackie French. Jackie French is a huge Australian author, and yeah, she is very, very popular. She writes fiction for all ages. I think she also, if I'm not mistaken, writes quite a bit of non-fiction as well. If you've heard of the Diary of a Wombat series, where it's like the wombat and it's like Monday, woke up, 8 carrots, slept. Tuesday, woke up, 8 carrots, slept. She writes those, which are amazing and incredible. But I think I think I remember reading on her website that she says she writes more than just the wombat books. And yes, I have read definitely one of her other books. I can't remember if this is my second or third by her. This was really good. This was told from the perspective of Nanberry, who is a young First Nations boy, and sorry, this is going back to the start of the year. He gets separated from his family, and it is during the time when a lot of the English are coming to Australia. I don't know if it was because of the English coming, but then there's lots of disease within Nanberry's family, and so he gets separated from them, and a long story short, he ends up living with one of the English doctors who comes. They have a language barrier, and somehow it just works. But then it's interesting, because then when Nanberry kind of gets better, he has this thing of, I'm hoping I'm using, like, he's treading in two worlds. So he's learned so much about, I guess, the English way of living, and then he has all this knowledge of obviously his First Nations family's way of living. And then I think because he knows like the medicine and stuff helped him get better, he goes to try and share that with some of the First Nations people in his community. And it's just caused a bit of issues within the community, I suppose. And so I thought this book was really interesting at exploring that. Yeah, I would be really interested to know, I guess now, because this is quite like a much older book now. I think it was published. It's been in the library. I've been working in the library for 10 years and it's been there for at least 10 years now. And so I think we're learning so much more today about First Nations people during that time. So it'd be interesting to kind of know how, I guess, accurate it is with the new things we're learning about our history and the history of those around us. But I did find it really interesting. I think it was really good at showing some of the complicated things that Ngambri had to go through and deal with, and I just felt for him because he had home and he had a family in his new family with Dr. White, but it just wasn't, I feel like he probably in this story never felt like he had his true home and kind of lost the opportunity to have that, if that makes sense. So yeah, I really liked this book. I thought it was good for me because I don't know a lot about that time, so it was probably a good starting point, but there's definitely more that I can learn about that time myself. The next book I read after that was The One and Only Ivan, and this is by Catherine Applegate, the same author as Otter. And oh my gosh, this book was incredible. It was the story told from the perspective of a gorilla. So I think lots of Catherine Applegate's, while being animal fiction, they're also told from, they have human characters in them, but they're told from the perspective of animals. And this book was just heartbreaking. I think I did cry in my car listening to this a few times. Again, I'd recommend this for year 4, year 5. Oh, Ngambri, I would probably recommend for like year 5 from 10, I would say. One and Only Ivan would probably be similar to Otter, same kind of age groups. Oh, there's just so much that happened in this, and basically it's from Ivan's perspective. Ivan is a gorilla and he is in like, he is kept in, oh my gosh, words are failing me, like a cage in an outdoor shopping mall, I guess. The thing I think of when I think of it in an Australian perspective is like Harbour Town. Or is it, I don't know if it's called Harbour Town anymore. In Western Australia it's called Watertown now. I will never think of it as Watertown, it's always Harbour Town in my head. But yeah, it's like an outdoor shopping precinct. And so in this outdoor shopping precinct, in the middle, they had this animal enclosure. And in there was a gorilla, later on becomes an elephant, and it's just crazy. Like, he will say things, he's just so pure. He has grown up basically in this enclosure, and he's so pure, and he will just say things like, oh, I love being in my cage. I have such a beautiful cage. The bars are so shiny. And you will hear that, and you can hear his pure just love and gratitude for what he has. But then your context is obviously bringing, like, you're a gorilla, you're not meant to be in a cage, someone's making money from you. Like, it's not like they're trying to rehabilitate you or anything like that. Like, they're literally just keeping you in this confined space to make money. And so you grapple with that, and then I think as the story unfolds, because Ivan is starting to open up to this newcomer Ruby, who's a baby elephant, he starts, I think he's been through a lot of trauma, and so he starts remembering things that he hadn't remembered before. Things about his gorilla family, things about, I guess, his human family before he kind of got to this point. And as it all unravels, it's so sad, but then it does have a happy ending. I don't want to just let you think that your kids will read this sad book and just be so sad. But it is a wonderful book to develop, I think, to contribute to developing empathy, because this gorilla's just been through so much, and you learn Ruby's been through so much, but there's a lot of hope, there's adventure. I believe they made this actually into a film either this year or last year. There's a second book about Ruby's story, and then there's a third one about, oh, I forgot his name, but the dog story as well. He's a very funny character. He brings a lightness to the book that it is definitely needed. And yeah, I'd really recommend it. Really good story. The next book I read was The Travelling Bookshop by Katrina Nanastad. She's one of my favourite children's authors. She wrote one of my favourite books, which is Rabbit, Angel, Soldier, Thief. I've read that by her, and Waiting for the Storks is also incredible. I learned so much from that book. I didn't know things that had happened in that book were actually real. This series is a little bit more lighthearted. The cover is illustrated by Cheryl Orsini, who is my favourite children's book illustrator. I love her illustrations so much. They are just gorgeous. And this book is essentially, it's about a dad, Mim, who's the main girl, and I think it's her little brother. And basically they live in a travelling bookshop that is pulled by a horse, and the horse kind of takes them to wherever they are needed. And so essentially what happens is they go to like a little town, and the town will have someone that has a particular issue that needs a particular book to help fix that issue, whether it's through lessons learned or what. Sorry, I needed to message out because he's getting so loud. Yes, and so they go to this town and help fix whatever the issue is. And so the first one's Mim and the Baffling Bully, I believe, which is the one I read. And I really liked it. It's very sweet. It's kind of nice because like the mum and dad aren't together anymore, but it just, I think, also shows how wholesome a relationship between a family with parents who have separated can be. And yeah, I really liked it. It would probably be for maybe from year 3, year 4. If you were reading it with your child, maybe year 2. Or maybe a strong year 2 reader. So 7 up, I would probably say, would really enjoy this. And then going on from this, the next one I read was Friday Barnes' Girl Detective. I'm so behind and late to this, but I'm so glad I finally read it. The kids at school love this series. This is about a girl called Friday, and she is incredibly smart. So basically the introduction like goes through how the parents are incredibly smart, like science smart people, and how they have planned their life within an inch of itself, and they planned specifically how many children they were going to have, blah 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 blah. And then they had Friday, who was like their extra one they didn't plan to have. And so she's kind of just been left to fend for herself in not like a mean way. You just gotta go with it. And so she would spend her time reading the family's library and doing all these science experiments and blah blah blah. Basically, she's, I think, in year 6 or something, and she's a girl genius applying for university. Yeah, and so she wants to leave her family and go away and study. And it was just lovely. It had really good humour in it. I really appreciate R.A. Spratt's humour. I don't know if you've ever heard of Nanny Piggins. I think Emma Thompson was Nanny Piggins in like the Nanny Piggins film. Oh, how many times can one say Nanny Piggins in a sentence? I have never read those, but I think that got made into a film, so I think at the time maybe that was quite popular. But yeah, the kids at school love these Friday Barnes books. These are probably, we have girls from year 3 reading these and loving them. But in saying that, like, you girls in years 5 and 6 are also reading them for the first time and loving them, or continuing from when they were younger and will still read the new ones as they come out. Yeah, really good. The next book I read was Murder at the Vicarage by the one and only Agatha Christie. I love the adaptations of, like, the Marple adaptations. They are comfort shows to me. But I had not ever read a single Marple. And so when I asked my mum, my Agatha Christie encyclopedia, she actually recommended that I read Murder is an Ounce Verse, which is a great recommendation because it is one of my favourite stories that I have watched. And so I was a bit nervous reading Agatha Christie for the first time because I just thought her writing style would be a bit older and a bit different to what I'm used to. And Murder is an Ounce was a great recommendation, but it wasn't at the shop at the time that I went. So I got Murder at the Vicarage, which was probably good because I think it's actually the first book technically. And I really liked it. It did take me a little while to read, I think, getting into it and reading something completely different. But I really liked it. It really surprised me, the writing style, that it wasn't written from Miss Marple's perspective. It's from everyone else's perspective, or from the people helping her. But yes, this is the story about, I don't want to say anything to give it away. I actually can't remember a lot about it. Hang on, before I confuse my stories. Oh yes, okay, all right. This one I remember now. My husband and I went and had like a huge Miss Marple TV show binge after I read this, which is why I've confused the plot and character list. I probably won't actually tell you about it because I don't know how much you want to know. Basically, we're in a small English town. Someone is dead. There's a whole slew of characters that could have done it. And this lovely old lady who loves knitting is the one to solve the mystery. It's probably describing a great portion of our murder mysteries that are out today. Okay, the next book that I read after this was called The Midwatch by Judith Russell. And Judith Russell also writes the Withering by Sea, Stella Montgomery mysteries. I haven't read those ones yet. They have been on my to-do list for ages, but still have not gotten around to doing them. The Midwatch is another middle grade story. This one is about, I don't know if it's just girls or kids. The main characters that you are following are girls. So they're these kids who go to this orphanage that presents as really grim and dull and boring and depressing. And they then, once like all the dust settles, this new girl has come, and once she's like all settled in, it's like the real, I guess, magic of the orphanage unveils itself, and it is somewhere where the kids can learn all different skills. I don't know specifically if they're learning to be detectives and to solve things, but that's kind of where this one goes. There's a particular mystery that occurs, and normally the older kids in the orphanage is the one that solves them, along with like the teachers and the headmistress and blah blah blah. However, in this particular story, it's new girl Sophie, I think her name was, who gets thrown into the mix and has to help solve it as well. Every kid kind of, from memory, has their little like thing that they're good at, and I can't for the life of me remember what our main character was good at. But I remember it being a really enjoyable story. There is kind of like a like steampunk kind of aesthetic to it. particularly towards the end. I really liked this. It was different. It was kind of good to read a book like this that there's just one of. I don't know if the author is actually going to write any more. I haven't seen any more come through, and we've had this for a little while. This one did get nominated, or like, did it get long? I think this one got long listed for the Children's Book Awards, but was not shortlisted. But I think it could have been. I really liked it. I think especially considering some of the other books that got shortlisted in the end. The next book I'm going to talk about is Laughter is the Best Ending, another kids book. With the mid-watch, I'd probably recommend that for year 5, year 6. Laughter is the Best Ending was shortlisted for the Children's Book Award. This is by Marion Master. Was it by Marion Master? Yeah. I really, really loved this book. This was one of my favorites that I read of the year. This follows a girl called Z, who is quite, not introverted. I wouldn't say she's introverted. She just likes doing things on her own. She loves, there are many Oscar Wilde references in this book. She loves Oscar Wilde and older authors, reading classics, etc. And she just hasn't found like her people with the same kind of interests. And then she has a great relationship with her parents. They kind of say, look, over the summer holidays, we don't want you hanging out by yourself the whole time. Why don't you try and go on this summer camp, see if you can make some friends, blah, blah, blah. She doesn't want to go, ends up going, and she makes some friends. But one in particular is in the most unexpected place, and it is with this very old lady called Old Bat Viv. So this is the story of the beautiful friendship between the two. And if you think about the title of the book, and also probably the opening chapter of the book, I'm sure you can guess where this story is going. But it is done in such a fun, clever way. I completely understand why this was shortlisted. I can't remember if this won. I actually have no recollection right now of which book won, which is crazy. But in saying that, I was in a different library when the winners were announced with a different collection of books, so my focus was a bit different. But yes, it was really good. I would really recommend it. Probably year 5, year 6 again. The next book I read was Daisy Hates. I think that's the full title. I can't remember right now. This is the like second book in the Magnolia Parks universe. I thought I was going to love this book. Love it. And it was okay. It was fine. I liked Magnolia Parks. However, I really liked the characters that are in Daisy Hates when they were in Magnolia Parks. Like, I really liked them, but when they were in their own book, I don't know, I didn't really like it. And I thought I was going to read the whole series, but it didn't make me want to read more. The next book I read was Tomorrow and Tomorrow and Tomorrow. I loved this book so much. This has really stuck with me. I think this can be a little bit polarizing with people, or I think some people find it a bit meh, whereas I just loved it. And I think that's probably because it's not like anything I really read too often. This is the story about originally 2 kids who meet in hospital, Sam and, oh, I've forgotten her name. I think it's Sadie. Is it Sadie? Who originally meet in hospital, and it just tracks their friendship over many years and of all the many different heartbreaking things that happen along the way. I listened to the audiobook, and there's a particular chapter that the audiobook does incredibly well and took me off guard. I didn't expect it. Yeah, I really liked it. There was times when I found the characters so frustrating, I suppose, because you're in their heads and you know their deepest, darkest thoughts while also being in the head of the other character. And so if they're not talking or if they're disagreeing over something and you just want them to talk again because you just know it's silly, and obviously they don't. Oh, gosh. Yeah. I really liked it. I'd really recommend it. It does have a strong video game like element. It does have some strong themes in it. Some of it I found a little bit confronting, but maybe it's just because it's not in my normal like reading cycle, I suppose. Yeah, like particularly one of Sadie's relationships was a bit... And I think also it was maybe more confronting because I felt protective over her more than anything, I think. Yeah. The next book I read was Silverborn, and this was my most anticipated book. Not of just the year. It's been like 4 or 5 years, I think, I've been waiting for that book to come out. It is the 4th book in the Nevermore series by Jessica Townsend, which is... It is a middle grade series, but it is also just, it's my favorite series. I love it so much. It has one of the most compelling bad guys that is so multidimensional, and you're often questioning, is this person actually the bad guy? Which... I just don't think he is. I think there's a bigger, badder enemy out there. This book was so good. It kind of takes you to a different part of the world. It was a chunky book. You learn a lot about different characters, and it was so good. It was so good. So I think Jessica Townsend said with her Nevermore books, there's going to be 9 altogether, and she sees them in like 3 sets of 3. So the first 3 are like her at school in this condensed kind of world, and then the next 3 the world gets bigger, and I'm assuming after that it gets even bigger again. I love this book. Like, if I was to rate this, it would be an easy 5 stars because I love Jessica Townsend's writing. I think the story she's created is just so... It's the perfect amount of whimsy and just everything else sprinkled together. I love it so, so much. If you have a kid that's a fantasy reader who loves like the classic Harry Potter, Keeper of the Lost Cities, who likes who likes sarcastic humor and understands sarcastic humor, I just think they would I love this. I've had a lot of success with recommending this series to the kids at school. I think it's a bit tricky because with the first book, I find it takes like a couple chapters for you to get in and get your teeth like into it. And so some kids, I lose them in the first like chapter or so until we get to Nevermore. Whereas I find with Keeper of the Lost Cities, slight tangent, I find Keeper of the Lost Cities gets them in straight away. So that's a really good series if you maybe have like a reluctant reader and you think they might like a bit of fantasy. Keeper of the Lost Cities is great. And there's like 10 of them, so with more to come, I think at the end of this year. So yeah, that's a really good series, but if they can give Nevermore like a red hot go, or if you can read it with them and just get them into Nevermore where the magic is, I think they would love it. Okay, the next book, this is where it kind of goes a bit chaotic. I read Blue Sisters by Coco Mellors, which was something completely out of my comfort zone. This was me testing to see if I could physically read literary fiction. This is part of when I really started to think I'm going to change up what I am reading, and when I just really wasn't sure what to tackle after Nevermore. So I wanted some short literary fiction, and I loved Coco Mellors' covers of her books, and this is what was available through the library at the time when I was ready to read it. So I read it. It served its purpose. I could read it and I could understand what was happening. The story was okay. I don't think I'd recommend the book. It was fine, but it served its purpose and that's all I needed. So from there, I went on to reading my first Cusk. I read Second Place by Rachel Cusk. I have heard so much about her and people loving her work, particularly from Lee Sales and Annabelle Crabb's podcast, Chat 10 Looks 3, which is one of my favourite podcasts. I love it so much. If you want a good Australian podcast that talks about books, TV, film, recipes, which is all the things I love. Well, mainly the books and the recipes I love. I just love the ladies. Like, you know, when they could literally just sit there and talk about science or like electricity or something, I don't know, paint drying, and I would just gobble up everything that they would say. Annabelle like made a series on Parliament House, which is not particularly like in my normal interest, but because it was Annabelle Crabb and she is like my top tier inspirational like human in the world, I watched it and I was very interested. I can't remember anything that I learned from it, but I remember really loving it at the time. She's just a wonderful... Anyway, Annabelle's talked about Rachel Cusk many, many times. And so I thought, oh, this is my opportunity. I had no idea what on earth I read in that book. I think so much of it, well, no, I don't think I know so much of it. I did not understand and it was lost on me. Like, I got the bare bones of it. I did understand, but I think there was layers that I missed and did not get. Yeah, so... it still served its purpose. I still basically understood what was going on. It took me forever to read because I don't think I was particularly like, at some points, excited to read it because I was just like, what is this book? But I think I will probably next year try her Outline trilogy and give that a go. I think that would probably have been a smarter place to try. The reason I tried Second Place first is because I was using ChatGPT for recommendations on like, I wanted like a book set in an art gallery and it recommended me this, which it's not set in an art gallery. It does have very loose art undertones, like the main character's an artist and one of the other people that comes into it is also an artist, but that's it. It doesn't, I wanted more like art stuff. Anyway, I digress. The next book I read was Matilda by Roald Dahl because I never have read Matilda by Roald Dahl and I watched the film randomly one afternoon. I think while my daughter was... I think I put it on for her even though she's not quite 2 and it did not keep her interest, but it kept my interest. I loved it. It was so good. And I really loved the book. It was really lovely. I completely like forget or didn't realize or compute that the film is American with American actors and set in America, and obviously the book is set in England, and I don't know why. That is for some reason something that I have really held on to. Not held on to, but it was just like, oh, an epiphany, like, wow, okay. Of course, how did I not realize that? Anyway, the next book that I read, the penultimate book that I have read, which I think I read this in like August, September, which is just crazy that I have now not finished and like too many books after that. The next book I read was The Overstory because I was getting confident, some may say cocky, that I was like, yes, I understand literary fiction. I'm gonna try a long literary fiction. And again, with the help of ChatGPT, I got recommended this book. And I'm so proud of myself for reading this. I think it was over 600 pages and it's about trees. It won the Pulitzer, I believe. I couldn't tell you what year. And it was just such a clever book. I found probably the first half to 2/3 of the book really compelling, really interesting. It's basically all these different characters around. Some are international, but I believe most of them are in America. all these different characters around America, and then the international one, I believe, comes into America from memory. Don't fully quote me on that. And it's all their individual stories to start with, and then it's how their stories all somehow entwine together through trees. And it's just so clever, and I never thought I'd read a book about trees, and it was very interesting. There was one particular bit that I'm not the biggest annotator. I'm trying to do it now to help with my memory. There was one page where I was underlining, I was scribbling, I was crying because it just hit something. If I didn't have my daughter, it wouldn't have affected me at all. But since having my daughter, there was just something about it that just really affected me, and I will always remember that now. I did reading, put that in my, I did journal on that a bit. It was just really clever and such an interesting way of telling a particular side of the story. It was so good. I would really recommend that. And then the last book that I have finished this year is another kid's book. It's called, now I messed up a bit. I accidentally read, I think it's Pavana's Journey, which is book 2 in the Breadwinner Pavana series. I borrowed this through BorrowBox or Libby, and it was the only one they had, so it wasn't numbered, and I thought it was number 1. In saying that, I read this without any context of number 1, and it read fine. It was incredible. It was such a good book. It's short and sweet. Not sweet. It's short and sweet. Like, it's short. It's not a sweet story. It's a really heartbreaking story. It is essentially telling the story of a young girl in, I think her family may have originally been from Pakistan, but they're now in Afghanistan. Or her mum is in Pakistan. She's trying to get to her mum. She's alone. She has no family. And it's her trying to navigate the world to find her mum. And it's about the people that she meets along the way, the fears that they have of running into the Taliban, and who can she trust, who can't she trust. It was so good. It was so well done. I learned so much. I found it challenging at times because I would just put my daughter into the shoes of that girl, which has, having a kid has really, I'm a very empathetic person as it is, I would say. I think I don't want to speak like highly of myself, but you know, like in an interview when it's just like, tell us your biggest flaws. I think I am possibly I don't think you can be too empathetic, but maybe too empathetic. I don't know how to describe it. But since having my daughter, and particularly reading this book, it changed it made me feel even more empathetic, and just, the thing that this kid goes through is just, she's an incredible kid. And just some of the people she meets are just pretty amazing. Yeah. I couldn't imagine the kind of fear that she would have navigating the world. Anyway, not the most uplifting way to end, but I'd really recommend that book. It probably would be better to read number 1 first. It does give context as to why she is on her own. But I found the story great either way. I should go back and read number 1 in saying that. But yes, it's incredible. And then, so I am reading a book at the moment. It's just taken me forever. I'm reading The Brothers Karamazov. I'm like a page away from 300 pages. It has taken me so long to get to 300 pages. But I'm hoping to finish it within the first half of the year, fingers crossed. And then I need to give big books a break because I'm losing a bit of stamina, I must admit. But But yes, anyway, oh my gosh, this is going to be a painful one to edit. Oh my goodness, no, it won't be. It'll be fine. But those are the books I read this year. I hope that you managed to get some sort of recommendation from it. It's all over the place and chaotic. So like, great job if you even get this far to the video. But at the same time, I completely understand if you did not get this far into the video. Please, I would love to know some of the highlights from your reading year, either some of the books you really loved, or like, I'm happy if you want to share some of the ones that just didn't work for you as well. I think we need space to vent. It's all safe. It's not being, like, I don't think it's being mean to an author. It's just saying that their work, it wasn't for you, and that's okay. I think we're allowed to do that. But yes, share it all. Share whatever you feel like, the bookish related or otherwise, in the comments below. I would love to chat to you about your reading year. All right, that's all from me. I'll talk to you soon. Bye.